Horizon, horizon going nowhere fast, but I know it's gonna get me home. We're rolling.
This exact moment right here and the story that follows it, an outer space car accident and its cascading consequences, are why we're gathered here today, to mourn the loss of a treasured save file, talk about intergalactic logistics, and learn a little bit about how much work matters. But first, let me ask you a question. Thousands of years from now, how do you think things are going to get from point A to point B? Forget roads, forget even the Earth. I'm talking a far distant future where humanity spread itself through outer space. What do you think intergalactic supply chains will look like? Will there be logistics services among the stars? No doubt things would work pretty different to how they do today. But the one constant, the thing that won't change, according to Star Trekker, will be that these systems will continue to depend upon strong, dedicated workforces who aren't rewarded enough for the backbreaking work they do, not enough to sustain themselves. Sustenance takes on a different meaning in the far distant future. We don't just hope for our current gears to keep turning ad infinitum. We expect citizens of a spacefaring society to be happier, to be more rid of burdens, to be freer than we are. The video game Star Trekker accidentally depicts a very bleak destiny for mankind. The late-stage capitalism that serves as backdrop to this truck-driving simulator in space is one where only galactic-scale enterprises remain. The system has eaten itself whole. Competition is extinct. There's no incentive for any business to be better than any other. The bare minimum becomes the norm, and the workforce who powers this whole thing isn't left room to save themselves a future. For those born to the system's side, the only option is to join rank until your last breath, which, in the vacuum of space, can be sucked from your lungs in an instant. It's not just the fact that a civilization with faster-than-light travel still has auto insurance. Look, I get it. This is a truck sim in space. Overanalyzing it is fun and all, but you're expected to suspend your disbelief a bit for the sake of its premise. What I mean, though, is that within the game's tooling, in the space between its different ticking resource meters, emerges a systems-driven story about the sacrifices one makes to earn their keep in a world that could and should be more fair. A story I sort of stumbled into and couldn't escape from. So what the hell is Star Trekker about? The headline here, it's a truck sim with 6 degrees of freedom. You've got your traditional spaceship/fighter jet controls, but rather than engage in dogfights, the gameplay consists of docking at depots, linking up with cargo, and shuttling it to different planets. In transit, your job is avoiding debris, monitoring your ship's systems, and meeting other particular job requirements like following speed limits, weight limits, local prohibitions, and delivery expectations. At its core, and consistent with genre norms, the game is mostly about maintaining your truck so that you can keep on trucking. There's an evident feedback loop between completing jobs and repairing your rig that easily pulls you into a flow state. The more you put it through its paces, the more your truck wears down and the more it consumes. The resources it depletes, like fuel and energy cells, can be re-upped by stopping at different space stations around the galaxy, with the outer space setting making your driver's well-being a priority too. This isn't a highway where you can just roll down the window to get some air. Outside your pressurized, gravity-induced, temperature-controlled cabin is a much harsher environment, one you couldn't survive in naturally for very many seconds. While your truck is your means of transport and earning income, it's also your shelter, your lifeline. So on top of gas and wear and tear, there are recurring costs that have nothing to do with the truck, like air filters, life support systems, things that keep you alive and comfortable inside your rig, but also during the occasional spacewalk. In other words, your truck eats fuel and energy, your driver breathes air. The appeal to these kinds of games, I've learned, is how comforting this loop is. It's cyclical. You spend some time in a region, you check out the job board, sign a contract, plan your trip, pick up some supplies you're running low on, top off your gas, and hit the road. At least in this future, humanity has settled on metric, eh? You've got different styles of deliveries to choose from, and you can optimize your truck to your personal playstyle. I gravitated towards the long hauls and fragile loads because they're the least time restrictive and give you ample bandwidth to lay back and cruise. I'd take a tricky flight through a debris field over a ticking timer any day, especially with controls as sensitive as these. I don't know if this needs saying, but fuck is this truck fun to pilot. One of my favorite things to do is line up a trajectory with a faraway target, burn the jets hot to hit max speed, and then just cut the engine, cut the stabilizer so that the lack of gravity or any road friction lets you glide smoothly and fuel efficiently to your destination until, you careen into an asteroid or something, but fuck does this feel good to play. Managing the various depleting resources might sound stress-inducing, but it's not meant to be. This isn't just a survival game, it's a truck sim. The resource depletion is less of an outright danger and more of a driving force for hopping off the freeways and docking at truck stops occasionally. It's less about threatening you with real consequences, and more about making you take breaks to simulate your space trucking fantasy. Until it's not. A good few days into my first save file, something went wrong. By the time I realized how fucked I was, the wheels had already been set in motion and there was no escaping my fate. I was barreling down a one-way road to deadlock. A few sessions earlier, I had been in a collision. A sentry drone crashed into me while I was en route. My insurance had expired light years ago, so I had to pay for the repairs out of pocket, and then, when my pockets ran dry, out of credit. I was in debt, and I needed to make some cash quick to get out of the red, so I shot over to the nearest station and picked up something from the job board. It wouldn't cover my entire debt, but a few of these jobs, and I'd be good. Or so I thought. The accident had torn some holes into my hull, which really put my air filters to the test, keeping the cabin breathable in the short time between the accident and my patch job. So while I was mid-transit trying to make up my debts, a little warning appeared on the dash, one I'd never seen before. My O2 rate was negative. My truck's filters were so worn out that while my oxygen generator could still pump in breathable air, it couldn't do so as quickly as I could breathe it. Slowly, my cabin was losing lungful upon lungful of air. I was running out of time. After wrapping up my job, I ran to the nearest convenience station, but they were out of air filters. I tried another. They had them in stock, but as precious as air is, and with competition entirely eliminated from the galaxy, whoever manufactures them was allowed to just name their fucking price, apparently. Air filters are one of the most expensive items in the game, dwarfing others by an order of magnitude. A single filter costs more than the average long-haul job's payout, and you need at least 2 decent condition filters to keep air flowing. So, while the store had them, I couldn't afford them, not on the credit I was already owing. Unable to fit them into my budget, I forewent them. On the way to another job board, I got a call from an NPC, a fellow in-game trucker, a quest giver, telling me to stop by some bar.
I'm meeting some friends in Spark City later. Want to join us for a little R&R?
Now, so far, each of the game's story missions granted some sort of meaningful reward, unlocking some functionality of my truck or of the world that allowed me to make more money more quickly. With my oxygen still draining and no affordable filters in sight, I figured I'd do the main quest for a sec as a Hail Mary. Maybe he'd offer me some sort of special haul or stock me up on missing essentials or something. I don't know, but it felt worth it. It was, of course, a mistake. The mission involved a series of excruciatingly long spacewalks to clean up some vandalism he'd committed to an outer space rest area. I had to let my truck sit there idling, wasting time while I drifted across the station, cleaning up some NPC's mess for 0 reward. I came out of that story mission with less than what I had when I started. Less air, less time, and even less gas. After wrapping all that up, I had just enough time to make it to another job board, sign a contract for another haul, and pray I could make the delivery, earn a bonus, shuttle off to a shop, and finally buy some new filters before running out of breath. That's not what happened. Somewhere along the interstation freeway, my character's vision started to go blurry. My O2 pump had done its best, but with the filters totally shot, it was at its limit. I thought for a split second about running to fetch my spacesuit and finishing the job with my emergency life support on, but then I remembered that it hadn't finished recharging since my stupid spacewalks around that dumbass bar. It was inevitable. I was going to suffocate and die out here in this rocket-propelled casket, and the trailer I was hauling would never make it to its destination. In my last conscious moments, I cut the engines, turned on the stabilizers, and tried veering out of the way of traffic, praying not to collide with someone while I ghost rode the whip. My eyes closed, the game faded out. When I came to, I was docked at the nearest station. An accident had happened, and I was deemed to be at fault. I'd passed out and caused some kind of damage. I owed money to someone, money I couldn't imagine paying back at this rate. The job I was running never got finished, and the trailer was damaged, so on top of it all, I was charged a contract termination fee, which was like 4 times the pay offered by the posting. I was completely and utterly fucked. I ran through the numbers in my head, and It just didn't make sense to keep going. It'd take me at least 4 jobs to make up for the termination fine, another 2 jobs to pay for a single air filter if I could fucking find one in stock, another job to finish paying off the debt from my earlier collision with the drone, and at least 1 more job to pay for the repairs for this most recent accident. The place I'm docked with, of course, didn't sell filters, so I'd need to do all this with only the air presently in my cabin while hauling another load with the risk of another hefty fine if I couldn't finish the job, and that's if and only if something else didn't go wrong. Assuming the next store I go to does sell filters for a reasonable price, and assuming that another fucking drone doesn't randomly bump into me, and assuming that whatever job I pick up pays well. I'd been put so deep in the hole that my character's life as a Star Trucker was officially over. I mean, as a player, so much wrong had happened on this save file that the game was in an unrecoverable state. I was deadlocked. I'd never be able to course correct back into an experience that was ever fun or carefree ever again. Any more time sunk into this would be just that. Sunk. This is becoming difficult. And so pushed to the brink, I just gave up. I quit. I abandoned that save, I abandoned the game, I ended that character's life, I moved on to fucking whatever the hell else was on Game Pass. I think that's when I started playing that Crab Souls game. That was fun. I held firm on my personal boycott. I couldn't justify investing so much time into a game that could so abruptly end without any means of avoidance. In reflecting on everything that had led to my demise, though, I realized that there were probably a few opportunities I'd missed. The root cause was technically money. I didn't have enough of it to survive such a long streak of bad luck. But a layer higher, the real source of my problem was that oxygen cost more than jobs earned. The game's primary verb, trucking, didn't net you enough money to afford to keep breathing, its prerequisite. This, I realized, was the game's way of forcing you to engage with another feature, one I'd ignored because it was boring. The trade microeconomy. See, in addition to fuel, power cells, and air filters, some of Star Trucker's shops stock superfluous shit, like random electronics, materials, medicines, and foods. I didn't understand what any of this was for at first. Neither I nor my truck needed them, so purchasing them seemed like a waste of money, until I saw these little arrows. It turns out this was part of a simple Chinatown Wars-esque supply-demand system. Congrats to the 2 people whose parents let them buy Grand Theft Auto for the fucking BS so that they could understand this reference 15 years later. Each region had unique costs for different types of items. A farming sector might sell plants and food pods for cheaper than usual. If you bought some and took them elsewhere, you could sell them for a premium, especially in faraway places where they were sparsely available. Of course, only if you didn't damage them too much along the way. On top of your necessary supplies, the game expected you to invest a portion of your income into material goods, playing Mr. Door-to-door salesman in every sector, hoping to find someone willing to buy some bullshit for more than what you bought it for, earning yourself marginal profits along the way. I can't keep doing this. There's 4 in my hand now. But there were 3 key risks to investing your money this way. First, if your gravity went out, your cabin's cargo would start to bump around. Damaged goods couldn't be sold at full price, so to secure your investments, you'd have to buy padded storage boxes to stow them in. Second, random weigh stations could fine you for holding too much in your cabin, forcing you to dispose of goods to meet the legal weight limit for your driving class.
Hold tight. We'll have you back on the road shortly.
You could try bypassing them by expelling excess items out of your airlock temporarily to pass the weigh-in, but that whole rigmarole costs time and could damage your cargo, so regardless, there's a price to pay. And third, security drones could perform inspections of your truck for contraband.
This is an automated checkpoint inspection,
forcing you to forfeit it before paying a very hefty fine. This one was particularly tricky because the laws of supply and demand dictate that goods sell for most in places where they're prohibited. Fireworks and alcohol, for instance, could be sold for huge profits at stations that explicitly banned them.
Contraband will be surrendered immediately and a fine issued.
If you found a way around the security checkpoints. The point here, in a game about trucking doesn't earn you the money necessary to keep on keeping on. The game doesn't pay you a living wage for your labor alone. But alternative methods of acquiring income are all strictly governed and policed. My whole experience with the accident, the wasted time scrambling to find air to breathe, it highlighted to me the flaws in this system and how much your sustenance depended on you participating in the microeconomy. The game's economics and job market were at odds with the sci-fi trucker lifestyle simulation it promised. Unlike the real world where a job's a job and you come home at the end of the night to, I don't know, see some friends at a line dancing bar, or wind down with a video game. In Star Trucker, every single moment of your life needed to be optimized. Every kilometer you drive has to be in service of the next money-making scheme. By not monetizing every second, you're risking your future well-being. Like, forgive me a tangent in a video about a truck simulator, but it's important not to look at activities that don't make you money as wasted time. Star Trucker's story missions, by forcing you to assign cost to personal events where there's no explicit reward and no clear estimate of their time investment, make you feel frustrated knowing that afterwards you'd have to make up for time lost. It reminds me of like feeling guilty for taking time off work to go to the dentist or handle a family emergency. I don't know if you feel the same, but taking time off always makes me feel bad. It shouldn't. I know the world should be fair enough that my team can manage without me for a few days, but that's not always been the case. During the pandemic, I worked at a very small company turned even smaller after lockdown hit our bottom line. In a very short period of time, I got COVID, which knocked me out for a week, and then had to spend some time away for a funeral. I felt responsible for leaving my team without a member, which sucks. And I know that it's wrong to think that way. Life happens, it should be easy. Or, here, this is fresh on my mind. Earlier in December, my grandparents got caught up in one of those grandparent scams. Some degenerate fucking scumbag called them impersonating me, saying how I was supposedly in jail and they needed thousands upon thousands of dollars to bail me out. My grandparents are old and they care a lot about me, but they got very confused. Only hours into it did they finally think to call me directly. I spoke to them, I explained that it was a scam, and I told them that I was fine and to hang up on anyone else who was pretending to be me. Problem solved, I assumed. For a minute I thought, fuck it, I should just go over there and check on them anyways, but it was 11 a.m. on a Tuesday and I was in the middle of work and fucking can you believe it, I thought the cost of an Uber to their place wouldn't be worth it. Turns out it would have been. They didn't fully understand what I'd said to them over the phone, and for many more hours they were strung along by these scammers until finally someone impersonating a cop came to their home and took money from them. They're fine, they'll be okay, but I'm pissed with myself. The world is such that I started assigning a cost to helping my grandparents, and I'm ashamed that I thought that a few hours off work and a quick taxi to their place wasn't worth it. I mean, purely economically, it would have been, let alone their distress. Don't make the same mistake as me, by the way. These scams are going around. Make sure your grandparents know how to call you if they think something's fishy, yeah? Why is a fucking video game eliciting these thoughts? How the fuck is its main quest making me feel IRL guilty? This is anti-fun, dude. Star Trekker makes you devalue those sorts of life moments, in the game and in real life, which isn't fair. You should be allowed to enjoy the story without worrying about your fucking truck, just like you should be able to value time spent with family during a crisis without worrying about your fucking livelihood. Star Trekker's job market being unjust, the only way to make a living is to haul extra cargo between sectors and ignore all other non-profitable responsibilities. Its economy relies on a working class that sacrifices even their personal lives just to barely scrape by, making up for a lack of security. It's hard to call this entrepreneurship. You're not running a business. You're hauling junk back and forth, hoping to make a small profit where it's more sought after, not by choice, but because you have to. And there's no variety in the junk you haul, no competition in the market. There's one brand of air filters, one brand of electronics. The market's been won, the capitalist game is over, and the last battlefield is last mile delivery. Still, the world's systems manage to get in your way. The halls don't pay a living wage, but infrastructure is set up to scan and fine you when you're caught making too much of a profit on the side. This is a future run entirely by enterprises after all. Begone, mom and pop. No chance to let anything new sprout. Star Trekker doesn't depict a pacifist ending for mankind. Social democracy is extinct among these stars. It's a single behemoth system, the hopeless workforce whose backs it rests on, and a consuming public who doesn't seem to mind. Is this future really so far out, though? Back in November, Canada Post workers decided to go on strike, one that would last until late December. They were looking for better salaries and health benefits, the basics. Yet, the public's response to their plea was to paint them as literal Grinches, holding Christmas and Black Friday purchases hostage. Those who work in the essential service that is delivery get no empathy for some reason. Canada Post is a crown corps, a social service run by the government. Since they're not a money-making engine, their mandate includes serving areas that are literally unprofitable to them. No matter how sparsely populated, it's their responsibility to make deliveries out across the entire country, and often for a cheaper rate than any other carrier. And while their strike does undeniably impact other businesses trying to get holiday orders to their recipients, it's also the Postal Service's right to strike. The unprofitably complete service they regularly provide should entitle them to this. But whoops, Grandma's not going to get her Christmas cards out in time this year, so they're the literal devil, right? This rapid disregard to vilification of logistics employees when they dare speak up happens regardless of their correctness. In 2022, Canadian truckers led an anti-government convoy straight to the nation's capital demanding an end to COVID mandates among a broad many other things. Its final form was heavily influenced by people who, surprise, turned out weren't even truckers, but the élément déclencheur to this whole situation was a heavy-handed response to a reasonable request.
Like, whatever your opinion on vaccines or the shape of the world doesn't matter here. I had COVID way back at the beginning. I've had friends and families who've died from the virus. My opinion is that herd immunity is really important, and what few dangerous side effects have been discovered since the vaccine rollout, like heart swelling, are far less dangerous than the heart conditions brought on by the virus itself, believe me. But not everyone understood what COVID or its vaccine were about. Remember, there was a lot of misinformation going around at the time, and many fell victim to it.
I'm not taking this shot. I don't trust the shot.
Some legitimately saw this as a body autonomy issue. Folks who were hesitant felt it safer to just abstain, a perfectly acceptable position given the climate at the time. And while I personally believe that that position was rooted in a lack of media literacy, my POV doesn't prevent me from empathizing with it.
To a small minority of freelance cross-border truckers who were upset with Canada's delay in lifting COVID restrictions, this turned into a protest against government overreach and the over-policing of their work. They were afraid of losing their jobs, Forcing all transport truckers to show vaccine passports at border crossings and truck stops, to them, wasn't just an attack against their personal liberties, like, where they could legally piss and shit, but it threatened their livelihoods. Clearly they were misguided, and the sort of hijacking of their movement by folks with a much more complicated manifesto didn't help.
Nazi flags, that's not cool, but I think just we want to make our point that we are not the fringe minority, and we want...
But what they needed from the world was to have their grievances heard and their misconceptions addressed compassionately. Instead, they were shunned, ridiculed, and riled up enough to storm Parliament. People have visceral, emotional reactions to their goods being delayed, forgetting that workers are responsible for getting shit around this godforsaken planet. Workers who often take on this work as independent contractors. They're not all on salary. Most truckers get paid per haul. A vaccine mandate isn't just offensive if you think they've got 5Gs in them that transmit your brainwaves to vampire Bill Gates. To someone who needs to monetize every waking moment of their day, vaccination is a rewardless time sink. Like, fuck, I'm not on contract, and I've put off scheduling important appointments because of how they'd impact my work.
Hell, I got all my shots, and I remember some of them putting me out of commission for a good few days. It should be easy to imagine how, to an older person who works on contract, like the literal grandmother who started the Canadian trucker movement, how taking time off to get a shot that might pump your brakes for a few days means a measurable loss of income.
Since I'm a dual trucker family, my husband and I both drive, means we're both out of work.
Even if they don't believe in Wi-Fi pronoun bathrooms or whatever the fuck conspiracy bullshit is floating around, getting inoculated might forfeit you that one big contract you need to pay off your truck for the month, and so it needs to be weighed against other, more profitable activities, more profitable ways of spending your time.
I think that society would have been healthier and that the trucker vaccine mandate wouldn't have led to weeks of traffic in Ottawa if these folks were afforded the safety nets they deserve. If getting vaccinated didn't directly impact their short-term ability to earn income and pay off debts, none of this would have mattered as much. Not to say that what they did wasn't wrong, but the pressure they felt had to do with more than just getting stuck with a needle. As I thought about how unfair Star Trucker systems were and started analyzing my own point of view on real-world events through the lens of its message, I knew my decision to call it quits was the right call. Why play a game or participate in a system where the odds are so heavily stacked against you? I loved disconnecting and just cruising through space, but not more than I hated the sense of foreboding that came with every risky maneuver.
But then I remembered, when I started the game, wasn't there some sort of menu about customizing the difficulty or something? Turns out, there was a way to enjoy Star Trucker again. I just had to tweak its settings. Using its starting configs, I was able to rebalance its economy and bring equity to its working class, of which I was a member. The only way to actually enjoy the game was to restart, tick the box that made me born rich, turn down the cost of junk at stores, and boost job payouts, effectively making labor more valuable than stuff.
After that, it'd just be a matter of working and leaning on my starter safety net to cover any unexpected accidents. This might be my limit, like diameter of my mouth wise. I don't think I can go. By dialing down the game's insistence on players participating in its economy as a means to survive, I returned to the promised experience of just fucking trucking in space. I eliminated the need for tedious price checking. I only needed to buy things that actually mattered to me. I completely invalidated the smuggling questline. Why risk your reputations when jobs finally pay fairly now? I had so many more opportunities now that one hiccup wasn't the end of the world. Not quite utopian, obviously. My character was still participating in the economy of things. They're literally a truck driver, but they no longer needed to side hustle as a door-to-door salesman to make ends meet. In terms of world building, labor was my primary source of income. I forced the enterprises that controlled the galaxy to pay a living wage to their working class and to price their products competitively. And in terms of gameplay, I made the part of the game that was actually fun the only part I needed to engage with. Needless to say, if you try out Star Trucker, which is free on Game Pass, I highly recommend this starting configuration. Otherwise, you're in for a bad time.
Logistics is an underappreciated service, and logistics service workers are an underappreciated workforce. Jack and Jill go up the hill to fetch a pail of water, right? And it's important for there to be social services in place for Jack to rely on while he recovers from his injury so that he's not impeded from making a living in the future, just so much as it is that Jill isn't treated as an idiot for thinking that gravity is a government psyop and that her tumbling after was a personal attack by the Shadow Elite, or that birds aren't real or something. Clearly there are some issues here, but making an example out of her will only stoke the flames further. You don't want these folks storming the International Space Station, right? These people should not be so quickly vilified by the communities they serve simply for speaking up for themselves, even when they're wrong. I get it, we all rely on them for essential personal deliveries, but nobody's looking out for them any more than you or I. A lot of the pressure they're under is systemic. Nobody cares whether they win or lose.
The world today, let alone thousands of years into the future, shouldn't be such that if you don't have enough money to pay for the air you breathe, that you should just die, save file abandoned. A head start shouldn't be a prerequisite to enjoying life. It's an underrated evolutionary step, the moment we realized that the things we used in our daily lives didn't all have to be from our locality, and that there were people dedicated enough to make the trips for us to bring things. I think we take it for granted sometimes, and are easy to lash out against challenges to this status quo.
There's a huge depth to this, at a glance, simple game about making deliveries from a big rig-shaped spaceship. And I think that's why I can't stop playing or thinking about games like it. I mean, what the fuck? Why is it that I keep being drawn to games about being a delivery guy, about hauling things around for people? Maybe it's because no matter how advanced graphics get or how immersive technology becomes, the most realistic game is one that makes you feel genuinely responsible for something, outside just as within its fiction. Or maybe it just tickles something deep in my brain that wants to tick off checklist items until I'm numb with distraction. I don't know, but you're sure to hear more from me about this subject. Thanks for watching, and take it easy. I am fucking cold.
Hello and welcome to the end screen! I'm doing VO standing for once. I haven't fucking said that in literal years. I think I was a fucking teenager the last time I did that, but here we are today. This hand, at least, is covered in so much oil and grease, which has legitimately made it hard to produce the portion of this video that you are actively perceiving, or at least that you have watched already, because my hand is so slippery with like discount sausage fat, and it's really a bad time. This is all of the Slim Jims. We had just enough to load a new one in every single take, except for the take where I was talking about my grandparents, and then also I needed one for the outro. So overall, very like economical use of these things. I don't know what I'm gonna do with the rest of them. I might just like grind them into meat and make lunches with them or some shit. I'm not about wasting food, but you know, this makes me feel silly. Nothing I really wanted to talk about, but I know I have to fill a little bit of airtime while the fucking this thing scrolls. Mind you, there's not that many people and the scroll goes so slow anyways. I kind of time it to how much I speak, so the more I speak, basically, the more airtime each one of these beautiful people gets on screen. So maybe I should be a little bit more verbose. Yeah, I don't have anything to talk about. I'm thinking maybe I just take one more bite of these and that'll inspire something. So, oh, here's something fun. This is the first ever video that I've recorded the gameplay and what you're watching right now in 4K. Why is that? Because I have a very jovial tendency of zooming in on things in my videos to, you know, highlight a detail I don't think anybody is going to see. It's like hard to breathe. And like when I do that for like gameplay capture that I've captured at the render resolution, yeah, it looks like shit and it gets very fuzzy and blurry. And I figured, okay, since I'm gonna be zooming in every time I do something stupid with these fucking Slim Jims, I'm probably gonna fucking motion track them to hell. I might as well record at a higher resolution so that when I do zoom in, you're not looking at fucking 200 by 200 pixels. Fuck. Yes, you know what? Guilty as charged. I'm a fucking moron. So, anyways, behold, high definition. Well, I mean, there was an era where 1080p was high definition, but I guess that's not good enough for fucking YouTube's compression anymore. Mind you, I get the good compression. I don't get the shit compression, but I'm not eating this. I'm just keeping it in my cheeks. I'm gonna spit it out after. I did that for the last batch. It was just a big blob. It was really fucking gross. Would you ever be a truck driver? Maybe it's just that I really enjoy road trips and like road tripping and like engaging with infrastructure made for long haul truckers, but there's something, it's like a whole like culture that exists not in one place but spread across one of the largest fucking land masses we have on this fucking planet. And I think that's beautiful. I've accidentally eaten some of this and I'm regretting, because that's like 5 Slim Jims and I took a big bite, so that's effectively like eating a whole Slim Jim in one bite. Anyways, what would you do? Let me know in the comments below. Have a great time. I wish everybody the best time and good times. Bye.